Alright, hey ABC, Jeff here. I'm back again, and I went to the thrift stores and I bought a bunch of stuff. Now, taking chances at thrift stores is always nicer because of course everything is inexpensive. Now, I did a video last weekend where I went to the thrift store and I bought some stuff. The typical stuff that you would see in thrift stores. The stuff from the 60s and the 70s. I bought some big band, I bought some Smothers Brothers albums from the 60s. Just, this is the kind of stuff that we see in thrift stores all the time. So it wasn't anything new. It was mainly like, hey, these things are $1. Let's try them out and give them a new home. They were in good condition. This time is different though. We went to 2 thrift stores on the other side of town, which we go to every couple months. Hadn't been in a while. We went and I started flipping. So I don't know if you're used to going in thrift stores, you probably know what I mean. Your typical thrift store stuff, everything in there has a look and feel because most of it's 50s, 60s, and 70s type typical stuff. The Percy Faiths, the orchestrated stuff, the things along that line. And it all has that kind of a look of the designs of yesteryear, of how those things used to be. So it's not too hard as you're flipping through to something to catch your eye that stands out because it's not the typical look and feel of every one of the albums that you seem to be flipping by. Well, I got to this place and I started looking, and it's like every couple albums I kept stopping because I'm noticing stuff that was definitely more modern. And then I started noticing a trend. They all either had magic marker numbers written on them or the promo stickers. I'm like, okay. And as I went further and further, they had them spread out. This place probably had a couple hundred albums. I'm saying, okay, obviously a radio station dumped a bunch of records here because I've got a lot of promo stuff. Some of it looks like it's never been played. It has promo gold stamps. It's got numbers written on it, and it's all modern stuff, but not bands that I'm familiar with. It's like I don't understand. These are bands, I guess you just never heard of them. I've never heard of them, and that's probably why they ended up at the thrift stores. I'm like, who are these bands? And why did I guess the radio station never played them because I'd never heard of them. But I started noticing more and more and started setting more and more aside. And then I went back through and weeded out the ones that had to bring it within reason. But obviously somebody dumped a lot of stuff. So let's look at that. This is the only one I bought that was of any real renown, and that's the Hooters. And this is it's got that song and we danced like the waves of the ocean romance. Anyway. And this was probably the most expensive one, which I didn't even realize was $5.99 until I got to the register, because everything else I bought was between $1.50 and $1.99. But I'm like, okay, I'll take a Hooters album, and this was probably the only one that I bought that was well enough known. And the rest of these, I'm like, I'll tell you why I chose them in a second. So this is one of the first ones I saw, and obviously it caught my eye just because she looks like a rocker. Joanna Dean. No idea who she was. Looked like a rocker. Came out in the 80s. I think it was like 88. I looked at the back. Kind of looks like a rocker. The band looks like they're rocking. And it's got a hype sticker right on it. It is a gold stamp promo. You can see right there. As I'm trying to list it on Discogs, find out it's not even listed on Discogs because it is actually a labeled promo too. You can see on there maybe. Maybe not with the glare, but right on the label it says promotional copy not for sale. They didn't have that on Discogs. I had to add that. I quickly pulled it up on. I don't think I could find this on Spotify. There was a couple I couldn't even find on Spotify. That's how different out of there they were. So I pulled it up on YouTube, and I'm like, okay. At times her vocals kind of reminded me of like a country rock, but the music itself was definitely more of a Pat Benatar-ish type rock. Anthem rock, Ready for Saturday Night, Kiss This, Dirty Fingers, Burning Rubber, typical stuff. And when I looked her up, turns out it looks like this is the only album she did, and then like a year or so later, it looks like she was in a band that maybe did one album. So the hype sticker's right on there. Yeah, I listened to this, it's just solid, it's just a pop rock stuff, which is what most of this is. I didn't score anything, great. All of this is like pretty much unknown. Stephen Crane, no idea who he was. Again, gold stamp promo. Again, it has the hype sticker right on there. I tried to pull him up and I don't think I could find anything on him either. he's a bass player. No, I did. That's right. He's a bass player, and I did find that the song that I heard was, you know, AOR rock with you know, bass heavy. But oh, okay. So why did I buy it? Album was in pristine condition. So I'm looking over the album, who's on here, and I'm saying, oh, Jeff Porcaro. I know him, the drummer. Oh, Steve Lukather. Okay. So I'm seeing some names from Toto and a lot of other projects and stuff like that. So I bought this. I don't know who Stephen Crane is. I think I've looked it up since then, but I got so many here I can't remember exactly who he is. He's a bassist. And again, I'm thinking this was the only album he's got. And, you know, it has Steve Lukather and Jeff Porcaro on it. So I'm like, okay, they got some names on there. Okay, this one again, probably from a radio station. This one caught my eye because of the hair. Hilly Michaels. And I thought, okay, is this like a Weird Al guy? The costume, the way he's wearing, the crazy back picture. It also is marked with a circular gold stamp promo, which is odd. It's on Warner Brothers, which I'm like, okay, Warner Brothers. It's a 1980. It was mint, brand new. I don't think it's ever been out of the sleeve. And then I looked him up, and it turns out it's Hilly Michaels Calling All Girls. I pulled up a video. He had like 2 videos from this. Very popish. At times reminds me of like a Devo type feel, that kind of a quirky pop. Then I looked him up, and it turns out that I think he's a drummer. Turns out he was a drummer for the band Sparks, which, interestingly enough, I had a Sparks album, and I gave it to someone in the VC who, you know, it was they had, you know, a major disaster, and we were all sending records to help rebuild their collection. And I sent it thinking, okay, this is kind of poppy, might be in his category more than me. I liked the album. I thought it was cool. It was quirky. Didn't think much of it. Well, now there's a movie. I think it's out in the theaters, or at least it was on. You could pay for it, like on one of the premium channels, on the Sparks brothers, and they've been around for decades, doing all kinds of music, and it just talks about their influence and stuff. And so now I'm like, darn it, I should have kept that album. But now when I go to try to find that album, it's kind of hard to find, or it's more expensive than I want to pay what I paid. But now I have an album by one of the drummers from the bands. It's sort of like, I really wish I started that Sparks album. But I grabbed that for that, and you know, and listened to the videos. I was like, that's kind of cool. It's kind of real quirky, fun, poppy type stuff. Mason Ruffner, obviously, he's got a guitar here. The back looks like, you know, he's a cool dude here. He got his guitar, guitar there. I'm thinking, you know, Brian Setzer, Stray Cats, rockabilly. I don't know. Again, it was in great condition. I don't know if this one doesn't look like it's maybe from the radio, but again, it was more modern. I'm looking at some of the musicians that were on here, and it says additional musicians, Rick Derringer. I'm like, all right, if Rick Derringer is going to play on this album, I'm going to buy this album. So, and I got it, and yeah, it's kind of a typical, just straightforward rock and roll. Yeah, I don't know. I don't want to say country rock again. I just think sometimes the vocal style kind of comes across that way, but just standard rock and roll. This was another one that the name sounded familiar. Jon Stewart. The name sounded familiar, not because of the political comedian, actor, or whatever. Bombs and Dream Babies. They had 2 versions of this. One was $1.99, one was $2.99. I could tell the $1.99 one was. This one's kind of got chewed up on the side there. But again, and it was on the RSO label. RSO, right? Yeah. Which I recognized from back in the day. I'm pretty sure that seemed like so many records back in the day, like the Bee Gees and Andy Gibbs and all those. And seems like that label I was always seeing that back in the day. So I'm like, okay, that's cool. The album is from 1979. And again, didn't know who he was, but it was a more modern looking album. I'm flipping through it, and I'm seeing special musicianship here by Stevie Nicks and Lindsey Buckingham. Special thanks to them. Anyway, so I'm like, okay, so if we got some of those people on here, I'm buying it. And it's, you know, I haven't given that one yet a listen. But then on the way home, we're headed back home, and we pass this other thrift store that have found some stuff in the past. And I'm like, let's go there. It's on our way home. And my wife's like, I don't want to go there. That place is kind of junky, and I don't really want to go there. And I'm like, oh, come on, let's go there. And so we went there, and I'm glad I did, because now all of this stuff is going to be CCM, Christian Contemporary Music stuff, because I hit the mother load if you're into CCM music, which I kind of am. I took a chance on some of these because, again, the price is right, but I was surprised. And again, well, I'm going to start with these. Okay, Russ Taff, Walls of Glass. Now, of course, I really wish they had Metals. That's one of my favorite albums, or even any of his other ones, but I was not going to complain. And again, as I started looking at all these ones, all of them had these sleeves in with the openings to the top, and every one that I opened looks spotless. They were mint. Covers were, they had a little wear on them. But anyway, I also noticed that most everything seemed to be on Myrrh. It seemed like they all had the same label. So I don't know. Did somebody just have every album on Myrrh and dump them? And they weren't all that way. But as I'm loading these on Discogs, I'm finding that all of them have very similar catalog numbers, and they're all on the Myrrh label. Grab this, and again, I had probably 20 albums. I put a bunch back because I was just like, some of these I'm probably never going to really want to listen to. But Russ Taff, I got the Imperials, Stand by the Power. Again, I bought some Imperials recently, and I thought, hey, they're not as gospel-y as I thought. And when I went to grab that, again, almost minty condition. The very best of the Imperials. This is one of the only albums that I had access to back in the 80s because my roommate had it and we used to listen to it. This is where I heard the song "Oh Buddha" and stuff. And I see this one's on Dayspring. But again, minty fresh. Leon Patillo, I have a couple of his. Don't Give In, I don't have. He had done some time in Earth, Wind, and Fire back in the day. And then he started doing contemporary Christian music, so kind of funky soul type stuff. I have an album or two of his. Seen him in concert back in the 80s. Richie Fury. I have an album with him. He's one of the original classic guys you heard a lot in the 70s. And I think this album is from the late 70s or maybe 1980s. Again, it's on Myrrh. Again, it was in pristine condition, so I grabbed it. That and the fact that it's in near mint condition. Then there were some David Meese. Now, David Meese was on my roommate in the military. He was into David Meese. Definitely more on the poppier side, more contemporary side. At times reminds me of, the style of like the Mile and Lefevre pop stuff, which I like Mile and Lefevre, so I thought I would dig into this. And they actually had 3. They had that, they had 7, and they had Count the Cost. You could tell that they get older as they get newer. And, yeah. So, again, all in minty fresh condition. And so I grabbed those. And then this just happened to be sticking out there. It has nothing to do with any contemporary Christian. I rarely find Buddy Rich in the thrift stores. And so I don't have anything of his on vinyl. And this one is the first one. The album itself is kind of beat up. The cover, it's got some ring wear on it. So I wasn't sure what to think until I pulled out the record. It is a Dynaflex. I think this is the first Dynaflex, and there's different versions of this album, it turns out, and there are 2 that are Dynaflex, so it's a little, I guess, made of a different material. And it was the album near mint. It's just pristine, very good, plus. So I'm like, yeah, I don't care if the cover's got ring wear. The album is minty fresh feeling, so I grabbed me some Buddy Rich. That's my first Buddy Rich on vinyl. I have some CDs and stuff, but again, every time I see him in the wild, it tends to be not in the cheap end. So I haven't picked up anything yet. But anyway, that's it though. I thought it was a great score, and like I said, I put a lot of stuff back, but it was just stuff that I probably would never really listen to and didn't. They had some other lighter music at the Christian one that I had in my hands, and I thought, yeah, I got to put some of this back. This is too much. That's all though. Great stuff. It was a great thrift store day in my opinion, because I just got some new material and I've listened to a handful of it, and it's really cool stuff. That's all though. I will see you later. Rock on and rock hard.